Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We are on ayah number 139 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Let us continue. قال الله تعالى: قل أتحاجوننا في الله وهو ربنا وربكم ولنا أعمالنا ولكم أعمالكم ونحن له مخلصون. So let's take some vocabulary. تحاجوننا from حاجة يحاج, which means to argue against somebody. Hujjah is an evidence. So when you make muhajjah against someone else, it's two people or two parties putting forward their hujjah, their evidence against each other. So you can say debating or arguing, that type of thing. Okay, so what actually is this argument that is being referred to? The Yahud used to say that we are the people of the book, you Muslimin, you guys came after us, we were before you and before the Christians. And our Qibla is towards the Bayt al-Maqdis, and all the prophets were from Banu Israel, and had Muhammad ﷺ been a real prophet, he would have been from Banu Israel, not from the Arab. This was the type of argumentation they put forward. And of course they still put forward something similar today. The rest of the words in this ayah are clear enough to understand. Rabb we have spoken about. He says, we have our actions, you have your actions. Meaning to say our actions are different. Mukhlisun is a key word from ikhlas. It means to make pure. So make your deen pure for Allah, so that when you worship it is for Allah alone, not for any other dunyawi matters. We may take, reflecting on this ayah, that Allah Jalla wa Ala tells the Prophet what to say and how to reply to the kuffar when they bring forth their shubuhat, their specious arguments. And so from this, let us learn the lesson that we need to prepare our arguments against the kuffar. We first need to know what their arguments are and then prepare a well-fashioned reply, a reply that cannot be refuted. So you've heard of military strategy. Well, we also need intellectual strategy. We may take from this ayah that we are not to resemble the kuffar. As the ayah tells us, we have our actions, you have your actions, so we are free of you. We may also take that we ought to be proud of our deen, because the ayah says we have our actions, you have your actions, as if to say we are proud of our deen. We are not ashamed of it. You find many Muslims nowadays who are intellectually and psychologically defeated. They are ashamed to talk about their deen and ashamed to say that they are Muslimin in front of the kuffar. And this is out and out weakness. Look at the kuffar, how proud they are of their lifestyles. Look at the homosexuals, how proud they are that they are homosexuals. A'udhu billah. We are more worthy to be proud of our deen than the kuffar are of their kufr. And we also take the obvious lesson, the obligation of having ikhlas to Allah Jalla wa Ala. That when you perform your actions, you're doing it because Allah has commanded you to do so, and because you intend to serve Him, to please Him, and to do right by Him as He has done right by you. Ayah 140. أم تقولون إن إبراهيم وإسماعيل وإسحاق ويعقوب والأسباط كانوا هودا أو نصارى قل أأنتم أعلم أم الله ومن أظلم ممن كتم شهادة عنده من الله وما الله بغافل عما تعملون. So again, Allah Jalla wa Ala is addressing the Yahud. He's asking them, do you then claim that Ibrahim and Ismail and Ishaq and Yaqub and the Asbat, remember the Asbat are the 12 sons of Yaqub alayhi salam, do you claim that all of these people were Yahud or Nasara? Allah asks the rhetorical question, of course, are you more knowledgeable or is Allah more knowledgeable? Then Allah asks, who is more of an oppressor than the one who conceals, the verb katama yaktumu, to conceal, the shahada, the testimony, which is with him from Allah. Okay, what is this testimony spoken of? It is, as we have said before, in their own scripture, in the Torah and the Injil, is the testimony from Allah Jalla wa Ala that Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is indeed a prophet, a messenger, not only that, but the last of the prophets and messengers. This is what these people are hiding. Remember the muhajjah, that was between the Yahud and the Muslimin in the previous ayah. They were saying that all the prophets have been from Banu Israel. How can this prophet be from the Arab? But their own scripture describes the last messenger. He says Allah is not ghafil, that means heedless of what you do. And we say He's not heedless because He has complete and perfect knowledge of all things. So we affirm the direct opposite of the negated quality. Ayah 141. تلك أمة قد خلت لها ما كسبت ولكم ما كسبتم ولا تسألون عما كانوا يعملون. This ayah has preceded with exactly the same words. Okay, so reflecting on these past two ayat, what do we pick up? We pick up that Ibrahim and his children, including the Asbat, were not Jews nor Christians. We pick this up because Allah is challenging their statement, and Allah does not challenge the truth. He only challenges falsehood. And rationally speaking, if you were to go back in time and ask these people, are you a Christian or are you a Jew? They would say, what is that? What does that even mean? The word did not even exist in those times. Yet they would tell you that we are Muslimun, or the equivalent word in their language. Because the word Muslim and its equivalent in the different languages always existed since the time of Adam alayhi salam. We find that there is no oppression greater than hiding the knowledge which Allah has given you in your scripture. Because with this oppression you mislead countless number of people. Whereas if you were to oppress a certain number of people, you're just oppressing them. You're not oppressing a whole nation and their progeny and generations after them. This is the result of hiding the knowledge which Allah has given you. It is a bigger deal than you would at first think. We take that Allah's knowledge is perfect. So when He says He's not heedless, that in and of itself is not a praise, because negating a blameworthy quality is not in and of itself a praise. The praise is affirming a positive quality. So when Allah is not heedless, it means He has perfect knowledge. When, for example, He says that slumber or sleep does not overtake Him, it is because He has perfect living and ability, unlike humans who do get tired. Let's take ayah 142. سيقول السفهاء من الناس ما ولاهم عن قبلتهم التي كانوا عليها قل لله المشرق والمغرب يهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. The vocabulary here, he says سيقول. The sufaha, the fools, plural of safi, foolish, the fools will say. So Allah Jalla wa Ala is preparing the Prophet for the argument. Like we said before, you've got to prepare for the shubuhat of the kuffar. So the fools from the people, he's referring to the Yahud. They will say what has turned him from the Qibla which he was upon. For the first 16 or 17 months when the Prophet came to Al-Madinah, he was facing Baytul Maqdis in his salah. But the Prophet wanted to face the Kaaba because he knew deep down that this is the proper Qibla. When he did finally change to facing the Kaaba, the Yahud accused him of being a man who just follows his desires. One day he does this and the other day he does that in accordance with his whims. So this was their shubuhat. The reason why the Prophet would face Baytul Maqdis is because he would do what the Ahlul Kitab were doing unless he was forbidden. And at that time, he was not forbidden from facing the Baytul Maqdis. So initially, he performed actions which were similar to the Yahud because they did have some guidance with them. But as the Sharia developed in Al-Madinah, it did not so much develop in Makkah. Makkah was more for calling the mushrikun to the deen. It was not really to develop the Sharia so much. That was more in Al-Madinah when there were Muslims who were ready to accept the Sharia. There's no point in developing the Sharia in Mecca because most of the people, mushrikun, they would not even accept it. There's simply no point. But as the Sharia developed in Al-Madinah, you found the Prophet opposing the actions of the Yahud more and more. Mashriq is the east, from Sharaqa, meaning to rise, as the sun rises, and Maghrib from Gharaba Yaghrubu, to set as the sun sets. That means the west. He says Allah guides whom He wills to the Sirat al-Mustaqim. We have discussed this in Surah Al-Fatiha. Sirat is of the wazn fi'al bima'na maf'ul. It has the passive participle meaning. So Sirat means a path, but it has the meaning of that which is traversed. So we would translate it to path, because a path is traversed. But a Sirat is a wide, straight path, which is traversed quickly because it's wide. Imagine a narrow path where people are crossing it. They will cross it slowly because it's narrow. But a Sirat is a wide, straight path which is easily and quickly crossed. Mustaqim means straight. Actually, a Sirat is a straight path. So the Mustaqim is there for emphasis, so that there may be no confusion. Let us reflect on this ayah. First of all, this is one of those ayat that you need to have background knowledge of, from the tafsir, from the ahadith as well. Then this ayah fully makes sense. So we may pick up, first of all, that you prepare your arguments, intellectual strategy. You look at the opposing arguments and you refute them by planning it all out, like a game of chess. You anticipate the opponent's move and then you prepare your move to counteract them. You try to remain 1 or 2 steps ahead. Notice how the word sufaha is used. Anyone who opposes his deen is a safi, is foolish. You might say, but what if he has an IQ of 140? We say, yes, a person can be intelligent and yet be misguided, because the aql, the intellect, is of 2 types. Aql al-idrak, this is your comprehension intelligence, and the aql al-irshad, this is your guiding intelligence. So a person can be extremely clever and intelligent, yes, but what he's doing may be misguided. Some people pulling off a bank heist or a museum heist need to be extremely intelligent to pull something like that off. It requires high level of planning and intelligence, no doubt. But look at the action itself. Is it guided or misguided? It's misguided. We learn here that the reason why the Prophet changed the Qibla from Bayt al-Maqdis to the Kaaba is because Allah Jalla wa Ala told him to do so. And as Allah is the Rabb of all things, from the east to the west, He has the divine prerogative to change His ahkam. Simple as that. There is no one to argue against Allah after this. And so the Prophet did not change the Qibla based on his own whims. It was the divine mandate. There is a difference of opinion as to where the Prophet faced before the Hijrah. Did he pray facing the Kaaba or facing Bayt al-Maqdis? There are opinions on both sides of the fence, but it would appear to us that he was probably facing the Kaaba, as the Kaaba is indeed the centerpiece of Mecca. So it's more likely that he was facing that. But at the end of the day, it does not matter. What matters to us is what the ruling is right here, right now, and we face the Kaaba. Simple as that. We take that Allah is the Rabb of all things. In this world, He is the Rabb from the east to the west, which means everything. And what follows from that is that if He's the Rabb of everything, then He can decide the ahkam of His deen. And He can chop and change as He sees fit. We also take the obvious lesson that hidayah, guidance, is in the hands of Allah Jalla wa Ala alone. As He says, He guides whom He wills. So if you are guided to Al-Islam and to practice Al-Islam, be grateful to Allah Jalla wa Ala for this fadl, or this grace of His. We can also take the virtue of this ummah, that Allah has guided this ummah to face the Kaaba, which is the first masjid and the first house of Allah to be made on this planet. And we have spoken about this before when we talked about the fact that the Kaaba was built 10 times in total. Wallahu a'lam.